Hi, Ben here at Numbergroup, here to present the latest vlog for you. And today's subject is on 999 location and the addressing system that we support. So, introductions. My name is Ben. I'm the Senior Support Technician at Numbergroup. And so the subject is quite important because it's linked into our numbers and the emergency services and so on and so forth. So as you can imagine, this is quite an important subject, and that's why I thought I should do this vlog video about it. So first things first is a bit of an explanation about the underlying system within the UK. In the past, obviously, all telephone lines or telephone numbers were associated with a physical line. And that physical line went from an exchange to a premises. And whenever a line was installed and a number was provisioned to it, OpenReach, obviously the operator of the network, were basically entitled to maintain a database of all these lines and numbers. And basically that information was shared with the emergency services. So basically the idea was that if you made a call through to the emergency services, 999, and for whatever reason you became unresponsive or they couldn't understand you or whatever, for whatever reason, then their system would basically show that you were calling from a particular number. They would look on their system and it'd say, okay, that number is linked to this address, and that is where they would then send the emergency services to. Fairly simple. So that's the way it used to work in the past. Now, BT being BT, don't update anything. They have a system, they stick with it, and that's it. So when voice over IP has come along, they've rigidly stuck to this system of operating, but it can't really be applied in modern fashion, a way that virtual numbers work. So, for example, I can go onto our portal and I can assign a number in Dundee to my account, but I could use that number in Dundee from Cornwall. Now, if I called the emergency services using a Dundee number, then they would obviously assume that I'm in Dundee. But this is the whole point of virtual numbers. You can be anywhere in the country. You can even be abroad for all they know. They have no idea about where you physically are. So in lieu of that, it is now a requirement for all providers to provide a system where we update OpenReach's system, address system, with the addresses of numbers that we have provisioned to customers. Now, obviously, as far as we're concerned, we have no idea where numbers are being used. I mean, if we sell numbers to a reseller, that doesn't necessarily mean they're using the numbers. They could be reselling them onto someone else who's using them from another location. So we cannot basically input the addresses ourselves. The system is designed so it has to be done by the end user. So based upon that, we've implemented a system. It's been in self-care for a while now, where basically you can upload addresses into our platform and link them to numbers on the system. So if you call the emergency service or a call is sent through our platform to the emergency services, then that address is then basically displayed on their system to say, this is where the caller is calling from, provides them a proper address. Now, the issues come is obviously because it's reliant on the end users of the numbers to supply us with the addresses, and I think we're currently at about 95% of numbers do not have an emergency address on it. So if you call the emergency services from one of those numbers, they won't know where to go because there will be no address on the system against that number. And in fact, one of the triggering factors for this video was the thing that two separate numbers this week called the emergency services, and they contacted us to say, look, we've got no address on the system for these numbers, can you please update them? So we then have to chase the end users to say, can you please give us the address of where this number is being used, so we can upload it onto their system. So from a safety point of view, it's obviously essential that you provide us this information, because without it, say if the call gets cut off, or you become incapacitated in some way, shape, or form, the emergency service won't know where to go. If it were calling from a landline, they would know straight away, because physical landline, physical copper line, they know exactly where that goes. With a VoIP solution, they have no idea. So if you rely on your voice over IP system for calling emergency services and so on and so forth, it is imperative that you update your address details with us. If you don't, then you may well fall foul of the fact that the emergency service don't know where you are. Now, obviously, if you can speak to them, you can say, "Oh, well, I'm at X, Y, Z." Then it's not a problem. But it's always there as a fail-safe in case you can't do that. And it is actually a legal requirement that that you do provide this information to the emergency services. So what I would suggest is go onto the platform, upload your addresses on there, and then make sure they are used. And once you've done it, it's done. You don't need to fiddle around with it anymore. It's not something that you need to keep changing, unless obviously you're changing where the numbers are being used. But I can't imagine that being the case. But if it is, it is. If you're outside of the UK, that's okay. You can still use the UK numbers, but you still need to register the fact that the number is being used from outside the UK. So if you should call through to the UK emergency services from France using a UK number, they will then see, oh, hang on, that person is not in the UK. They have a UK number, but there's not actually listed in the UK as a UK address. So that's also important as well, because that information again then gets filtered on through to the necessary people wherever they may be. So how do we support it? Well, there's two main ways of doing it. Either via the trunk system, which basically allows you to link addresses to individual numbers based upon the outbound traffic that you're placing out. Also, you can specify a fixed address based upon the trunk. So the system will always say, okay, well, this trunk is always being used from this location. The other way of doing it is linking it directly to the DDI itself. Now, what I'll do is, at the end of this video, I'll pop a link to the instructions for setting up emergency service addresses, so there's no ambiguity about how to do it. It can be a little bit confusing, but the only reason it's confusing is because we have to try and capture every possible way that you can use a number, and that way we have to give you multiple ways of doing it, essentially. So that's why it can be it could be deemed to be a little bit on the confusing side. But I hope that this video has emphasized the importance of this. It is really, really necessary that you do provide this information. If you don't, then lives are at stake potentially, and this is why it's very important. Let's say check out the video. So the video link will just be there. No, it won't. It will be. I can never get this right. There will be the video link, and subscription will also be up there as well. If you want to subscribe, you like the videos, then please subscribe. Any comments or anything like that, please leave them below the video. If any further links are required, I'll put them in the description as well. But that's basically it for this week. No big updates this week either, so there'll be no update video this week either. I'll catch you next week for the next vlog.